When we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. Quoted Jada DeWalt. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. This is Marin.
And myself, Sharath, the MCs for Panel 2 Organizational Resilience. Merin, what do you think organizational resilience is?
According to me, I think organizational resilience is the ability of an organization to anticipate, prepare for, respond, and adapt to the incremental change and sudden disruptions in order to survive and prosper. To get more insights, let's head on to our panel discussion. And before that, let's introduce the speakers for the day.
It's an honor to welcome the moderator, Dr. Rajini Sriraman, and other panel members, Ms. Punitha Anthony, Mr. Kamesh Krishnamurti, and Ms. Kirthika Venkatsh with a floral bouquet. Now I call upon Ms. Saranya of second year MSW to introduce our moderator, Dr. Rajini Sriraman.
Good afternoon to one and all present here. I am very much honored to introduce our moderator for the session, Dr. Rajini Sriraman. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Rajini Sriraman is a Vice President HR at Esskay Structures Incorporated, Vienna. Ma'am holds a PhD in Psychology and HR from Madras University. She is a senior psychologist and a HR leader with over 20 years of versatile organizational expertise. Ma'am is a people-oriented, passionate facilitator and a competent communicator who has created robust development programs that led to sustainable development and organizational transformation. Dr. Rajini Sriraman has worked as a chief architect in the diversity and inclusion through Women Allies. Ma'am has served as a chairperson for the internal complaints committees for prevention of sexual harassment of women since 2015. Ma'am has also co-facilitated talent programs to identify high potentials and high performers to reutilize talent development. Ma'am has created high-end communication tools and methodologies which has led to global collaboration, people engagement and organization development. Dr. Rajini Sriraman works with a compelling desire to advance diversity to make workplaces sustainable. Networking is a competitive advantage and she is a curious learner with a never say die attitude. Thank you, ma'am, for joining the session.
Thank you, Saranya. Now I would like to call Ms. Ruth Karunya of first year MSW to introduce Ms. Punitha Anthony.
A very good afternoon to one and all present here. I am privileged in introducing one of our panelists of today's webinar, Ms. Punitha Anthony. Ms. Punitha Anthony is currently working as Director Human Resource in CSS Corp. She heads the Employee Relation function and the Business Partner HR function for the large unit in CSS Corp. In the past, she was a Senior Manager in CSS Corp and Senior Lead HR in Infosys. She has 15 years of professional experience in the field of human resource. She has won several awards and recognition for her efforts in employee engagement and for program managing large-scale employee events. She has rich experience in managing the HR function of a large development center and specializes in grievance handling, especially sexual harassment issues. She served as Secretary of NHRD from 2017 to 19. She is the co-founder and managing trustee of Matram Foundation, an NGO that works on education initiatives. She leads the academic process, career counseling of young students, especially the girl children, and guides the alumni students. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us today, and once again we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ruth. Now I would like to call upon Mr. Andrew of first year to introduce our panel member, Mr. Kamesh Krishnamurti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to introduce our next panelist for the session, Mr. Kamesh Krishnamurti. Talking about Mr. Kamesh Krishnamurti's career development, Sir is currently designated as the Head of Consulting, Banking and Financial Services, India at Cognizant. Sir has 14 years of experience in Cognizant groups with various roles such as manager, senior director, assistant vice president, consulting partner and leader for Southern Europe. Sir has worked in other organizations like Sundaram Infotech Solutions, National Finance Company SAOG, Larsen and Turbo Limited, and L&T Finance. With over 30 plus years of experience, Mr. Kamesh started as an executive assistant to vice president of Electronics Group. Sir is a pioneer in business consulting, digital banking, corporate banking and financial services, strategic planning and leadership, project management, and many other transformational programs in India and across the globe. Sir is known to be a magniloquent leader who is a voracious orator and a great evangelist in the domain of financial services consulting. Mr. Kamesh has earned his Masters of Management Studies (MIS) from Birla Institute of Technology and Science. On behalf of PG Department of Social Work, Self-Finance, MSSW, and Pegasus Student Forum, we welcome you and look forward for your knowledge enriching session. Thank you for gracing the event with your presence, sir.
Thank you, Andrew. Now I would like to call Ms. Jayashree of first year MSW to introduce our panelist, Ms. Kritika Venkatsh.
Good afternoon to all. I am glad to welcome Ms. Kritika Venkatsh ma'am, Solution Lead for Worker and Safety at L&T NXT. Ms. Kritika Venkatsh did her MBA on Systems with ICFCA Hyderabad with a graduate degree in Information Technology from Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering, Chennai. She has been working with L&T since 2007 with her initial assignment in L&T for automating business processes using information technology. She is currently Solution Lead for Worker and Safety at L&T NXT, the digital startup inside L&T. She was also one of the key members of digital transformation team at L&T Construction. She was also responsible for some of the key initiatives as a part of digital transformation and implementing digital with industrial focus on IoT, industrial safety, analytics, and AI. From IT, she moved to strategic planning and was a part of Lakshya core team, 2016 core team. Leaving no stones unturned, she later moved to contract execution and was a key delivery manager for lines. Once again, we welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jayashree. Now I request Dr. Rajini Sriraman, the moderator, to take over the session.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. And it's, I should say that, it was a fantastic opportunity to bounce back, and we are all here face to face. Unbelievable, let me pinch myself. It's really beautiful, especially, for me personally. Your previous panelists, the current panelists, most of them are my very, 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 very good friends. Okay, professional friends whom I've not met in the last 1 year, almost 1 year now. And otherwise, we used to bump into each other very often in various forums like this. And having said that, I want you, this particular college, to give a big hand for yourself, yeah. If I'm right, if my research is right, I think your college is the first college which is doing a blended conference where you have a virtual platform as well as a real platform. I think that way you guys have done a fantastic job. And I know the organizers also, guys, you did a very, very good job. Keep it up. And that's all about resilience, okay? That is resilience, actually speaking. Okay, you did not wait for anybody to show you the path, or you did not wait for somebody to tell you what has to be done. In fact, when the minute we told you, hey, why don't you think of a live platform, when we met a month ago, in the Phoenix Mall, you didn't even buy me a coffee. I'm still wondering why you didn't buy me a coffee. Doesn't matter. Okay, so we said, why don't you do a live, show? Why are you always thinking of a virtual? Now everything is over. No COVID. There is COVID, but then not much of COVID. Okay, so they said, they immediately jumped at the idea that is all about resilience. How quickly you bounce back and the speed in which you get back to your normal frame of work, and how much you contribute, that is the most important thing right now. So I'll take about 2 minutes before I start interacting with the panelists to tell you about what's going on in the world right now about organizational resilience. Okay, resilience is I'm a psychologist by education and training. Okay, and resilience has been a very close concept that we've been watching right from my college days. So I'm a 89 pass out from WCC, your friendly neighborhood college. Okay, and I used to come here and hang around with my friends who did their social work in their PG. So, from those days, we've been watching these two concepts, grit and resilience, very closely. And today, the world has witnessed the biggest opportunity where we can do a live learning of resilience, I would say. Okay, and having said that, I was doing some browsing to get you some facts and figures. And yesterday, I bumped into this research which said, this is this organization, I'll tell you the name of the organization which conducted this research. They did this study on about 30,000 participants worldwide. Okay, and why is this study important? I have something very important for each one of us, as well as for the country that we are part of. We are Indians, and we have something that to be very proud of. Okay, and of the 30%, 30,000 people who were sampled and surveyed, India is on top of the resiliency index. I think we deserve a big round of applause. Okay, India is the top country. I'll give you some more data. India is the top most on the resilience index. Okay, we are like 23% on the index, and I think that is fantastic news for us. And next to us is like Saudi Arabia, United UAE, Singapore, Mexico, and people like that. Okay, so I think we have something to be very, very proud of. And they said that, the more resilient people are in organizations, the better is the engagement. Okay, engagement of people. They are able to better contribute to the top line and bottom line of the companies, and they're able to actively, contribute to the business growth and sustainability of organizations. Okay, there's a small study which I thought I should highlight. And the panelists who are sitting along with me here are, they are part of huge organizations. Okay, they are part of companies which have been there, done that. Okay, in their own industrial arena. And when I was trying to frame my questions, one thing hit at me was each of them are very big companies. CSS Corp, I just heard from Punitha, they are like 5,000, 6,000 plus just in India. Okay, just in India, and international must be much more. I'm sure, Kamesh has a 1 lakh plus to talk about as an employee strength, and so is, L&T from Kritika's point of view. So we'll start off with that, I request each of the panelists, we'll start with, let's break this ladies first. While I am a big, I'm not a feminist, just because they read this posh quiche and all. I do a lot of posh work. I like to support women, but I'm not at all a feminist. Okay, and I like to give equal opportunities, and I like talented people, whether man, woman, or otherwise. I'm extremely, I look at talent as the first thing. Okay, so I'm not a feminist. Please don't misread my profile. Okay, and Kritika knows I do a lot of work with women. It is just for them to come out of their, cocoon and start showing what they're capable of, and be independent. That is it. So, pardon me? Okay, something loudly they said there. Okay, so, and having introduced myself in that way, I will, go directly to Kamesh, and I will ask him to narrate his story at CTS, the organizational story of the pandemic, the big pandemic story, the big story, like the big B, big story in 2020, what happened in CTS, And I also know that Kamesh has a personal story to narrate with regard to, the pandemic and what has been their resilience quotient. How did they bounce back? Kamesh, can you please take us through your story, please?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone. This is a good diversified panel. No? Good. So I was just going through, just trying to, since she really touched upon my personal story, so let me tell you, when the pandemic struck, I was in the place which was hit most, Madrid, Spain. I was living there, okay? And it was March 9th, 2020. And March 8th was the International Women's Day, and they had a huge parade and cavalcade there. And the very next day, that night was like, it was pretty bad. There were so many COVID cases there, and the mayor declared it's a lockdown. And the crazy situation was that I had my wife and parents in India. I was in Europe, and my daughter was in US. So we had this family split across 3 continents, and we didn't know what to do. It was just counting the number of days. It was 91 days, which in complete isolation, just confined to the house, because you know that Madrid was pretty badly affected, and there were armored cars which were doing the rounds just to make sure nobody comes out. So that was pretty bad, and we had a clinic just right below my apartment. And every day at 8 o'clock, people make, mockery out of this, the people coming out of the balcony and, shouting and so on. We did that all the 91 days I was there. At 8 o'clock in the evening, people used to come out and thank all the workers, and they used to come and acknowledge, and they were really good. Of course, thank you. Of course, escaping out of that place and coming out that's a good, big story. I don't want to talk about that, the Vande Bharat and and going through the embassy and so on. So we are an IT services company, and we are serving customers worldwide, 280,000 employees, close to 700 and odd customers. I serve the banking and financial services industry, and many of you would have noticed, nothing stopped during COVID, did it? You were transferring money, you were doing all the things that you would wanted to do, and that is exactly the clients wanted us to be serving them. They did not want to stop. So resilience is one of the many important things that in fact I had spoken during that time to 2 different analysts worldwide. They're famous, Gartner and Forrester. And we'd asked them, what's the impact? And everyone was talking about resilience. That's the ability. I think somebody very nicely introduced that. Anticipate, prepare, respond, and act, and also adapt to any impending changes, whether it is short term or it is slow or sudden, whichever way that the organization has or gears up itself into any kind of changes that are coming in. The previous panelists, the previous session, they talked about disruption. About technology, digital disruptions, and all of that is going on. So in our industry, I don't need to exaggerate. Technology has made huge amount of disruptions, and business models and operating models and everything has changed. So it was very important for us to really make sure that, first of all, we need to ensure it's business as usual. There's nothing which is different. And I'm very happy to say, within a period of very short, about 2 weeks, I think the people were mobilized from all over the place, whether it was India or Europe or United States. And we don't have a policy of providing laptops to all the individuals. So it was just after, beyond managers. I don't know where they got these laptops and how they managed it. And it was, I did hear about it, but I can't confirm it, that we were even contemplating flying out a special aircraft full of laptops from Malaysia to serve the requirements of people out here. But the fact of the matter is, within a period of a month, almost 200 clients were they were impacted, and they were all, put on, almost a daily call, just to apprise them what's happening. To make matters worse, we were also hit by a ransomware attack. I think you guys would have read about it, right? And ransomware is a little different from a normal virus attack. It's very malicious, and there's some group which is really looking at it. But I'm really happy to say that the company really bounced back, and there was nothing which was affected. I mean, for a certain period, perhaps on our internal systems, and thankfully we didn't have to look at our payroll for some time, or we didn't have to enter our timesheets for some time, and that was nice. So accepting that, the client-facing systems, none of them were affected. So that was one very interesting experience that we had, and I mean, on a personal level, I think I've gone through many of these disruptions. Maybe when there was a 2001, September 11th, right? I was in Oman and very near Yemen, right? So on 28/11, I was just in Bombay, just flying out of that place to, this place, to US. And 1992, I was there in between Mysore and Bangalore, stuck in a train. I don't know. I don't understand it. I seem to go towards those troubled areas very, very often. But okay, talking about this, I think it's important. We need to be really looking at resilience at multiple levels. Organization. We're talking about organization, but for organization means what? It consists of people, processes, technology, everything, right? And people have to be resilient. And we'll talk more about that as we really go on. And really happy to be with you. And I was so happy to see panelists from L&T next, because I started my career in L&T, 1990, right? So we'll talk more about that.
Thank you, Kamesh. I think he made a very interesting start to the whole discussion. He combined both his personal as well as professional experience with the pandemic. And I think, at the end of this whole thing, if we have to give an award, who's the most resilient man? We may want to give it to Kamesh, because, the most resilient person, because whenever we do all this training hours and all, we have this fashionable term called man hours. While I'm not a feminist, I also don't like to use words like man hours and all, okay? So we said, okay, we'll call it person hours. But no one is able to do that. We train people, but then we are all stuck to man hours only. Doesn't matter. So you are the most resilient man, I think, Kamesh, because whether you are following all the resilient experience, or whether the pandemic or any other epidemic is following you, I really don't know. But I think you have a knack to handle that, and that's why you get more opportunities of that sort. So we have to talk more on that personally, maybe offline. But fantastic way of putting it. I think the 90 days, I'm sure, has been in front of the laptop. You must have spent at least, all 90 plus 90 days in the laptop.
Well, I had learned a lot of skills during that time. I had to cook. I was trying to rewind that after 25 years. After 25 years, and thanks to technology, WhatsApp, and we had to really do that. I had to spend my time, keep myself alert, service customers across the globe, whether it was Hong Kong, Australia, US, or whatever it is. I think the most, it's a change management aspect, the moving away from seeing some, live human beings in front of you, interaction, and Spanish colleagues, they are very high touch points race, right? They like to talk, and they're very, very, very social and so on. So it was complete shock, you're just cut out completely. So that was the most defining moment for many of us, in fact.
Absolutely.
And then we'll talk more in terms of how do we really prepare ourselves, but that was the most defining moment for me.
Sure, and that's where, the whole story started about, CTS, what they did, and how they came out of this deadly pandemic. I'm sure you all are on top of things now, and yeah.
Well, there are multiple stories, if I were to look at it, we had, added to top of this, we had a new executive management. Right?
Okay.
The CEO had just joined in 2019, and then we had a whole new executive management. We had a lot of exits due to various reasons, and then we had a completely new setup where and we were just and the expectations from the market was pretty very very high, and then this pandemic struck, and then we had to be really be on top of it. And I think the employees or associates, if I call it, they really geared up, and that's the passion that I would really look at it. An instance in the past also helped us because the 2015 floods, we were also stuck with a similar kind of a calamity.
Yeah.
Two of our data centers had, were,
Underwater.
disrupted and so on. So probably that was ingrained, whether it was Chennai or Pune or everywhere, and people are stuck at various places. People are stuck in the, remotest areas in Punjab, or, folks like us stuck somewhere else, and in airports, and, in some other countries and so on. So it was important for us to, there's nothing else to do, might as well serve the customer. I think that was the, great thing. And we used to joke in Cognizant that, if you want to get things done, get the customer to talk to the client, to the associate. You'll get done. Nobody listens to managers, leaders, and I'm just staying in the lighter vein. But if the customer wants something, things will get done. That's how the company is also grown, and that's one of the very remarkable things among the associates. And I've really tried to understand how it's been. So during this time, I think close to around 100,000 people across India. And many of them were waiting patiently. They tried to use their personal laptops to make sure some of these tools were downloaded, and they were trying to serve the customers at very odd hours. And at least one of the critical things they were ensured is, okay, the current systems are not affected. So just to make sure that, the critical systems were not affected. Number two, there are also high touch points. There's a lot of communication, constant communication with the clients. And in fact, the clients, more important stakeholders were on the call almost on a daily basis. And their senior stakeholders were apprised of the situation every week. So one of the most important things that we had put to practice, what is being specified by BIS in the resilience thing, is communicate, communicate, communicate. Keep communicating, either to your colleagues, employees, customers, suppliers, and everyone for that matter. I think that was something which was very really followed.
Thank you so much, Kamesh, for taking us into a deep dive about what you all did and how you were able to service the customer better. So from an IT paradigm, let us move into a manufacturing paradigm. We have Kritika here, and Kritika is also handling a very sensitive function out there in L&T, which is like safety. And from that perspective, I'm sure the entire paradigm shift happened for you from a physical safety perspective to a virtual safety perspective. We would like to listen to you on that, and also talk about the L&T story of the resilience quotient, and also tell us your personal story of is there anything that we can learn from Kritika?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy and proud to be here, and along with the distinguished guests and along with me in the panel. And I have to tell you that all of you know L&T as a construction company. This is we as Larsen and Toubro, we have the biggest revenue coming, the largest revenue coming from the construction, and we are the company who built the nation. So it was such a critical aspect. Unlike everything happens at the ground. Nothing happens in office. While there is a good amount of work happens in the office in terms of design and other operations, the actual work gets done in or in the construction sites. And when the pandemic struck, all the sites were closed. We couldn't just do anything. And I have to tell you, Mr. Kamesh explained about the IT part of it. While I'll tell you something more interesting is, we are the largest employer of construction workers in this country. And at any point in time, we have about 200,000 workers working across multiple locations across the country. So when the pandemic struck, we couldn't have anyone go out. So we had the labor camps. What was interesting is that the sites, there's not a single work happening in the site, but we will have to ensure that the labor camp is equipped enough in terms of all the sanitization and other aspects, and also constantly fed. And that was the, I must say that the most important aspect that as Larsen and Toubro that we had to go through is that while there is absolutely no action happening on the ground, we had to keep the 200,000 workers fed and ensured that, because you all understand the way they react, behave with each other, right? So even a small one person contracts COVID, then the whole site has to be, it's even worse than not having the work done. So with all this, we had to ensure that nobody escapes from the camps. So there was a lot of thought, and I must say that in terms of resilience, this just hit us just like that. We were not informed that we were going to go into lockdown. But then on the day one onwards, we were able to remotely communicate with every one of these sites in terms of what are all the safety processes that we'll have to follow in terms of hygiene, in terms of managing the crowd, because all these workers were wanting to get out of that place and be with their families, and there was no way that they were able to go. So that was the story that when the lockdown happened. The worst story happened when the lockdown and the unlock happened, because the first unlock, all these people for whom we were been feeding left us, and then they obviously, because they wanted to go and see their family. So from 200,000 workers, we were down to almost 70,000 workers. Now with shortage of labor, there's no work that's going to happen at site. So this was the even worse a challenge. While the government gave approvals to start work at the construction site, but practically it was not as much as what we were able to do before, because we didn't have enough labor. So we had to come up with multiple campaigns in terms of, I must say that he brought about digital disruption, and the digital transformation that we had done helped us to reach out to all these workers who had just left us and bring them back to any place that is closer by, may not be the same place where they were working before. So this was one of the very, very critical aspects that as Larsen and Toubro that we had to go through, because we have about 400 odd sites across the country. So it becomes very, very difficult, I must say, or important, very absolutely unimaginable to manage all these 400 sites remotely, sitting in your own houses. So for L&T, the work from home was a completely different experience altogether, which is something that we have not seen it for the decades in that the company has been running. So that was the second. I must say that while the first lockdown and the unlock, I must say that the important aspect is the leadership, in terms of all the leaders in the company have been driving. And all of you know that this company has been in business for like more than 8 decades now, because of the fact that every leader becomes responsible for the work that we do, whether it's me or whether it's anybody. So they take the responsibility on their own and ensure that the things happen as required and as professionally as possible. So that is what was important, and I must say that the leadership team were so resilient that things started coming back to normal much faster than what we expected. So this was the challenge, and I mean we also combated the same challenges that Mr. Kamesh said, in terms of all these design guys were just in the office and working with their desktops. So what do you do with so we also had to practically ship the laptops and somehow ensure that the work doesn't stop. So this is one of the critical important aspect. And to the third thing is like Rajini said about going beyond one of the new SOPs that has to be followed is also about COVID, right? One is about the awareness for every person who is coming in or going out. We have to create awareness. There is also additional SOPs that have to be made available, even with no one telling us what to do. I think that was beautifully brought out in the previous panel discussion. It said, there's no one going to tell us that, see, something like this I did, you also do it. No, if you wait, you're not going to have, you're going to miss the bus, and nothing is going to no one will come and teach you something. So you just have to learn on your own. So we had to, during this lockdown itself, we had to come up with all the SOPs, the new ways of new processes that we'll have to follow, because every machine that you has to be inspected, and the way you inspect, because it could be used by multiple operators, how do you sanitize them, and all these labor camps have to be cleaned and ensured that there is absolutely no mishap that happens, right? So all that had to be done, and this was all done even in the 1 month of the lockdown that we had. So we were able to, I must say that, able to come up with these processes on all the functional heads, put their heads together to see how it can be done. And that is exactly, I must say, that the story of what we went through as COVID as a resilient in L&T. So that's, and personally, I have a lot of stories, but nothing about resilience, so I'll park it out.
Thank you so much, Kritika. I think, yes, I think that deserves a good round of applause, because manufacturing is totally a different game, ball game. It is very scary sometimes. She has narrated it very beautifully, like she just said it like as though it's a very simple thing to do. It's not that simple, because they must have had a number of challenges dealing with cleaning and all of those things. So when she was talking about resilience and how they quickly took on to their work seamlessly, I don't think they had any time to even think whether it was CTS or L&T. I mean, even for that matter, CSS or my company, we never had any time. We just next day, it was all declared and we started doing things. So one of my very senior, I would call her my friend, philosopher and guide, Dr. Lata. She was with Madras University, and now she's in Bangalore. She just wrote something on Facebook. She said, even before we realize that the pandemic has hit us, we'll be almost out of it, because human nature is to be resilient. Human beings, we have this fundamental embedded DNA, which is to be resilient. It all depends on how quickly you tap into that. That is all. And all of us tap into it at a good speed. And that is what came out in these two beautiful stories. How they were able to look at that DNA and tapping not only for themselves, for the organization, but also for their peers, their colleagues, and their juniors. Helping them to tap that resilient quotient, which is inbuilt with us. We're all born with that. We have that naturally within us. It's nature's gift to us. Okay, and it is just like your, that gut that we all have, right? That gut, the intuition that we're all born with. How quickly we kind of touch into it, and the same thing. Resilience is also there inbuilt, but how quickly you do it matters a lot. Thank you for that lovely story. And Kritika, I have something to tell about Kritika. I'm part of an organization called All Ladies League, and we were trying to do an online webinar. And we do a lot of work for women in manufacturing, helping women to get into manufacturing and helping them to do well in manufacturing. So while we're looking at people who play different roles, I bumped into Kritika through MMA, and they said there's a lady who's leading safety function. And I was like, it was like adrenaline rush for me to contact her and to meet her. I'm really telling you, I was very excited to meet Kritika, and she did a fantabulous job on the panel, and I know her caliber. And the second thing is, the beautiful thing she told her during the conference was, she used to walk into the tunnels and all that. So, I'm not a I believe in this, okay? Yeah, talent, right? It's a talent. She went into the tunnel. As much as a man, it's hardcore labor work, but she was able to do that. So, Kritika, thank you for that lovely insight.
If you don't mind, I just want to add one point.
Please,
because
please.
there was a question to the last panelist, about being a woman and not being able to. There is absolute, should not have any inhibition about being a woman. So just, first of all, like Rajini said, beautifully that just forget that you are a woman. What you do is more important. What the role that you play in the organization comes first than being a woman. So, in fact, just to bring that story out, I had narrated about my personal experience, and when I was part of the digital transformation team for L&T Construction, so the solutions that we create, it's not enough if it works in my phone or it works in my peer's phone who's sitting in the office. Every solution that we deploy has to be working properly at the site, and it has to be valuable for the person who's using it. So it was important that I had to go through inside the tunnel, probably meters down the ground and meters above the ground, all the places, just to ensure that the solution that we develop works, because it was and for doing that, just because I am a woman, that should not stop me from going into it and seeing. So that's it is a fire that you have to have inside you to be able to forget about that and come out of that inhibition and do it. So I have also told her that when I used to go to the sites, all of them are like very helpful and very considerate. So they'll be like, oh my God, ma'am, you need not go. No, so what? So what if I have to go down? You should not think about me being a woman. I want to go down and see. So that is that's only with you, and only you decide to do or not, and no one will be able to empower you. That the empowerment has to come from within. I'm so sorry.
Sure. No. Great story, Kritika. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes. So this story reminds me of my former boss from TVS Logistics. Mr. Ravichandran, he will say, like, when you see Basha movie, my Talaivar movie, Basha movie, like, when you come out, you feel like bashing someone like that, Andamari, Naramballa Murke, when you look at the story also, it feels like that for me. Naramballa Murke, tunnel, let me get into the tunnel. No, literally, I mean it. I'm telling you guys, I'll tell you, guys or girls, you need that adrenaline rush. And today, that lack of that rush is creating havoc in workplaces. When we get all the somberi kodinga who join us, it's really boring to handle, so you must eat well. Diet la vacha enga company la hire panna matom. Okay? Now anybody dieting, you will please don't hire them, Punitha. Okay? Because she's a HR person, I'm telling her. Okay? And please, you need that. See, when she's saying, like, I'm looking next in a car later, see, that is something all of you need. That is resilience, yaar. Nothing else. Flexibility, adaptability to situations. She's actually narrated a beautiful resilience story. If you look into it deeply, right? Just konja deep dive pannunga. Like, what do you mean? What does she mean? She's talking about flexibility in the mind, adaptability in the body. How many of you have that? I am at least double your age. Vanga otte kotte, we'll see who's like, flexible and more adaptable. You know why? Because I eat well. Please, okay? So that is an important thing. That's like a teacher to student types, okay? So now I move on to, again, like what Kamesh said, we are a very diversified panel here because we have a business person, of course, not from a gender perspective, guys, from a role perspective, he's a business person, she's a safety person, I am again moderator, so it doesn't matter what I am, okay, and we have Punitha, who's a HR person, okay. So now all cameras on to Punitha because she is going to talk about the CSS story, and Punitha, again, please listen to her story, very interesting CSS Corp story. She has quite emotional stories to narrate as well, and how CSS Corp and Punitha as a HR, how did they handle that? Over to you, Punitha.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Like I said, I think Sir has narrated the entire organizational resilience, and since I'm from HR, I thought I should talk about the people resilience, and that's most important, right? So for us, when we started, we have a center in China with about 200 people working there. So when it stuck there first. So we were clueless what was happening, and we had to move into a work from home scenario. But that kind of gave us a kind of an alarm clock saying, "Acha, if something has happened there, it is going to spread across, and so we need to be ready." So we came up with only these three things. You need to have foresight. You need to make sure that it is seamless, and we need to make sure that we are ready all the time. So the minute things hit badly for us in China, we made sure that we create a support system for the organization, for our employees, so that we can bounce back and we can start off work. Now, in a very different scene for us, in your case, business was not there. For us, business was booming. Because we are a tech support company, right? So there is a lot of switches, routers, people were buying left, right, and center, and they were looking for support. So the number of calls that were coming in, the number of support that was required was very high. So business was just coming in, and we did not know how to handle that because people are now in a very different scenario altogether. So from HR, what we did is we kind of put together this framework called CHEER, that Cheers framework, right? So C stands for communication because like Kamesh said, communication, over communication is something that we had to continuously do because we had to connect with people. We had to tell them that this is available, this is not available, this is what you need to do, this is not you're expected to do. Because when you're in an office, it's a very different scenario altogether. You kind of meet, you see somebody, you know what their emotion is. Somebody is not well, their kid is not well. They come to office, they're dull, you know it. And you say, okay, go take a break. We'll come back. But when you're in a call, you don't know what they're going through. You have no idea what an individual is going through. So we had to constantly communicate. In fact, today, me and my boss, when we talked to each other, he said, you know what, I think the HR team needs to have some kind of intervention because the entire team is fatigued. We are constantly talking to people. So we have set targets. We said we have to speak to at least 20-30 people. And trust me, speaking to 20-30 people per day can be exhausting, emotionally exhausting, because they're telling you stories. They're telling you stories after story, and you're listening to it like, yeah, I know, I understand. Even I have a small kid at home. I know, even I cooked in the morning, and I'm still sitting and cooking for my husband. I know, yes. So there is that emotional kind of a scenario at your houses, then there is your client pressures, and there's a lot of business, right? There's a lot of money that's coming into the organization. And like he said, when a manager goes and tells that, I want you to work additional hours, nobody's willing. But when the client comes on the call and says, hey, listen, I'm giving you additional business, I want you to do, everybody is geared up. But there is so much of stress because you have to manage work, and there is this whole personal, professional space. You're doing everything right there, right? Earlier I used space because I used to get up in the morning, get ready, go over to the house, go to work. Today I get up in the morning, get ready, go to my bedroom and start work. So my workspace is now my bedroom. My child comes running, there are video calls, and suddenly mummy no oru kuladha varum, I am hungry in varuvanga. So we have to create an environment where we had to tell people that it's okay. Because when you start off, right, when there's an engineer and they're on a client call or they're on a team call, they start getting embarrassed. They start getting scared that what will happen. Kuladha odi varudhu, cooker satham kekum, pinnadi maamiyar vandu nighty pottu povanga. It is a difficult thing, and practically it was very, very difficult. In fact, a lot of my agents, right, from my customer support, there are a lot of agents. Now they are living in 1-bedroom houses. They're living in a 2-bedroom house. So they have, in the side, the father will be working, in the side, the brother will be working, and here this person will be working. And when I have to do a confidential call, I'll say, Koncho, please, can you come out and take this call? Ma'am, there's no other room, ma'am. Hall, TV, party, TV serial pakaranga. There is only one room. My father's here, my brother's here, and I'm here. I said, veli the balcony, I can't talk to you on this with the presence of everybody else, right? So workspace became a challenge. Sitting and working in a place became a challenge. That and the whole the whole way that we could get out of this was to constantly communicate to people. And the biggest, the tragedy stories that we had was, we had 3 COVID deaths in my organization during this space, right? So and all young kids, 25 years, 26 years, and there was somebody who was 45 years old, and he had a daughter who was getting into her first year of college and a son who was in his 10th grade. Now the biggest challenge here is when there is a death in your team, or when there's somebody who's sick in your team, the first thing that you do is go and stand there. You be there for the family, you're there for them and give them that kind of a support. Inge, you can't do any of that. You cannot go out. And all of this happened during the lockdown period. So we could not go, we could not be with the family. The hospital was not even handing over the body to the family. So the family was going through an emotional turmoil. We could not do anything. We were just, again, on calls and saying, we are there, you don't worry. You need some support at the hospital, we call the hospital, we call the insurance guys. We are trying to do all of that support. But the personal connect was missing. And that impacted the team because the team was going through an entire phase of guilt, right? Yesterday morning I was talking to him. Today morning I was talking to him. I spoke to him last. But it was extremely difficult for the team to get out of that. So to kind of manage that guilt, we had to do a lot of interventions, a lot of programs, a lot of webinars. Again, everything virtual, but we had to constantly put them through mindfulness sessions, got them through sessions with psychologists saying, how do you build that psychological immunity, right? More than anything else. How do you build that psychological immunity to get over situations like that? So we had to constantly communicate, be connected with people. The H stands for highlighting the achievements. Because again, when you're in office, something good happens, you go there, machan super da, right? But here in calls, nobody even knows what's happening. Something happens, there's an email and they're like, hey, good job. But nothing like you in person going and appreciating somebody. So we had had put together a quick portal and we said, okay, now anything happens, go put it on the portal, put it up on the intranet that everybody in the organization gets to see. Earlier, organizational achievements were coming in on the portal, right? On intranet, it's only organizational achievements. Today, every achievement, everything that an employee does goes up on the portal. So people get to see that. People feel like, okay, my name is here. Okay, I have done something like that. So highlighting the achievements of people, highlighting the achievements of what the team was doing was very, very important. The E stands for engagement. And as HR, I think employee engagement is the key thing that we have to do, right? So what we, again, employee engagement, unfortunately for most people, is doing some event, Rangoli competition, and that's us. And let me tell you, that is the assumption of employee engagement for anybody. So when they say HR employee engagement, in many, many interviews, HR students have told me engaging with employees is basically conducting events, right? And that's not engagement. Engagement is about how do I make my employees feel belonged in the organization? How do I make them feel that this is the place that I want to work, and I want to work not because the company is paying me, I want to work because I love to work here, right? So what we did is our entire core values, we revisited that. We said, okay, now is the time that we need to reinforce the value system of the organization, tell people that, hey, this is why you're here in the organization. This is what we believe that you're capable of. So we revisited the core values. We called it the dream values. We said, okay, this is something that you need to aspire to be part of. We said, dare to excel, respect people, excellence in all that you do, agility in everything that we bring in, and making customer success our topmost priority. So that's our dream values. We said it's not that it was not there in the past. We just gave it a new name. We just reworded it. We said dream. We went about evangelizing to people. I have about 8,500 employees in my organization. We did sessions for 7,500 employees on the dream values. We said everybody needs to be talked about it. We need to tell them that this is what we believe. Incidentally, CSS Corp is also in its 25th year this year. So we said, okay, now we are going to make it grand. We are going to celebrate the 25 years irrespective of the fact we are going to do it virtually or not. So we created teams. We said A25. We work with our alumni and see what kind of feedback we can get from them. Can we get some stories from them to see why were they so proud of being part of CSS Corp? Then we have something called W25. We said something specific for women. Let's do a mentorship program for women employees. We are doing a CSR 25. That's 25 CSR initiatives in 24 hours at 7 different geographies. So that's a record that we want to make, and we said, okay, we will do that sometime. P25, which is people initiatives. So that's where all these Rangoli competitions, cooking competitions, let's do some fun stuff for people. Let's keep reminding them that, hey, this is a place that you can have fun. We're doing Y25, which is a leadership mentoring program for 25 young people under the age of 25. We said, pick up those guys and say, okay, put them through our leadership, have them connect with our leadership team, connect them with our XCOM, let them speak to the CEO, let's put them to a design thinking workshop, let's put them through a leadership development program. So that was something that we did. Then how do we create more presence in the media, in how do we brand ourselves better? So we said M25, media, PR opportunities, interviews. So we created so many, and today I have about 150 to 200 people who are in the core team working on the CSS 25 initiatives. So it was about involving more people. It was about getting more people to start connecting with the organization. And I think that was extremely important for us to engage them, connect them with the organization, right? So the next thing was the other E. I forgot the chair has two more things, right? I'll quickly finish. So the other E was about energizing teams. So how do you energize the teams that you're working with, especially in a remote environment? And that is when we said we need to do something with them, with their families. And it's not, and when we are in office, we ask the families to come into office. But now how do we engage with the families, right? So what we started doing is we said, okay, let's do contests for our children. Let's do contests for our family members. So we had painting contest. Today on our dream values, we're asking our kids to write some stories and say, what is your story on, of course, they don't understand integrity, they don't understand agility. And we said, we'd make it simple. Say, honesty, pati, write a story and send it to us. And let's see what, we sent a crossword competition for the spouses of our employees. And we said, let's engage with them. And it's not just about the competition, but after the competition, put them all in a Zoom call and then say, okay, have the CEO address them and say, and the CEO gave away the prizes for these children. So for the kids, it's like, oh, company or the CEO is giving, me a prize. The amma or the manager is giving me a prize. It's a lot of connect that we were able to build, right? All our R&Rs, because it was happening virtually, we said, get your families to come in. We said, come on video calls. So we actually had the children, the mothers, the spouses sitting there and they cheering. And that's why I said, no, this nighty porter, mummies will be there, parties will be there. It was so much of fun. So the whole thing was becoming vibrant. So we were trying to energize the teams, all the COVID affected employees. And today I think we have about 140, 145 people who have affected COVID. Every single one of them, my head of HR called and spoke to them. Everybody individually said, what is going on? How are you feeling? We are there for you. Do not worry. And don't worry about your job. Don't worry about the money. Right? We made sure that the head of HR directly speaks to them, communicates to them, and kind of energizes them, because it is in times of grief, it is in times of need that you need somebody to kind of be there to back you and say, hey, we are there for you. And then finally, the R stands for rewards, recognizing people. Again, extremely important, because today nobody seemed to know what is happening, what is going on. So we had to make sure that we have individual project level recognitions. We said we'll have team level recognitions. So ipo eppadina, they're like, ayo podanga, over rewards and recognitions, right? Because we are saying, no, I want to recognize you. Come on, I want to do this for you. So constantly communicating and constantly being in touch with our employees and engineers. I think that was the biggest way where we could build that. Rajini ma'am actually beautifully said that as human beings, we are born resilient, right? We are naturally resilient. We kind of bounce back. But when you are doing that, and when you are doing that journey, when you have somebody to support you, your journey is much faster. You bounce back better and faster. And I think that is what we focused. We said, our job is to stand by our engineers, stand by our employees and say, hey, listen, whatever happens, the company is growing. I know you will work. I have no doubts on that. But when you are doing that journey, remember, I'm there for you. Remember, we are there to support you, and whatever issues that you have, whatever concerns that you have, come back, let us know. The HR connects on 2 hours of Zoom call every day. There is 2 team members who varanga varala. We said every day 2 hours. Any problem, any issue, come talk to us. We are there on the call, always for you. And we've been doing that for the last 1 year. Continuously, 2 days. And that's why I said my HR team is fatigued today, because every day, and there are issues, there are concerns, some people just come and talk to us. In fact, I have had my managers telling me, Punitha, neenga eppo office open பண்ணுவீங்க? Please open the office back. It's like கவுண்டமணி சொல்ற மாதிரி தான் டைவர்ஸ் கேஸ்லாம் வருது. They are saying, நீங்க வந்து if you don't open office, I think I will actually divorce my wife, because we are literally fighting with each other. I can't handle this. But I can't open my office. And frankly speaking, the organization is doing well in the work from home scenario. There is no disruption whatsoever to the business. But how do I manage the emotional aspect of an engineer? getting them to kind of say, illappa, adella okay, but you know what, we need to do this, we need to do this. I also go through the same thing. My son comes and sits next to me. He said, Ma, 11 o'clock, you're still on calls. Ma, 12 o'clock, what are you still talking? My mother comes and eats my head. She's saying, you have not eaten. 10 mani aduna saapidama ukkandirukke. All of that, every one of us go through. But how do we kind of support in that bouncing back is what we were focusing in CSS Corp. So that's the HR journey in the entire resilience.
Great. Thank you so much, Punitha. I know, HR had to play a very extended role, and having done that, it's fantastic, and congratulations. One thing I want to tell her is, at least your mother-in-law is walking only with a nightie. My mother-in-law sings throughout the day. She's a music teacher, and then she keeps singing, and she's very young. She's about 86, and very young lady, and that's how she thinks of herself as and she has international students. She's earning in dollars, euro, whatever, ella possible currency she's earning. All over the world she's got students, and for her pandemic, she'll get, for her nothing matters for her. She'll keep on singing, and everybody wants to divorce their husband or their wife. I wanted to divorce my mother-in-law because literally, because there's so much noise at home, I couldn't have any meetings at 3-4 months. I went back to office very quickly thanks to my mother-in-law, and I was in office I think in June or something, and then on and off, and then from August end I started full-fledged going to office, because thanks to my mother-in-law again, she made me more resilient, and yeah, it happens. So HR varkella idella romba sagajam, but however, talking about her initiatives, for a HR person, the biggest issue is when you start losing people. It's a huge challenge. One is emotional. Second is, the CEO is at stake, and his business plans. And if these people are going to be directly contributing big time into your sales or business, then it becomes a huge challenge and also emotionally very draining. And so that way, I think they had to really build that resilience internally to show. Even we, in my family, in our friends, among our friends, we've lost very close friends. Really understand what it means. So, the HR role has become the toughest, like what Kamesh was saying. Kamesh, while there was no timesheet, or attendance, that you had a lean period then, we were running after timesheets, not knowing why we are running after timesheets. Literally speaking, because it's all like engineering language. They'll talk about tonnage, they'll talk about beams, columns. We're also into steel constructions, right? So Satyama, I don't understand a bit of what it is. While I want to learn, every time I see the timesheet, my head will go for a chucker, because it's so crazy, okay? But we have to manage the timesheet, and timesheet la irundada unukku salary, otherwise there's no salary, because there's no punching, right? So no biometric, nothing. So it was a very big challenge. And even now the timesheet business is going on while we are 100% back into the office, because they feel that people are swearing by the timesheet. In fact, I have an allergy for timesheet. I cannot just see. And I have my colleague who sits in Trichy, and she cries every time, ma'am, timesheet paakno, ma'am. Na enna pandrathu, ma'am. Indha maasam nirthidalama timesheet. Na nirthana na eppo nirthirpen. It is not my call. It is a CEO's call. So, there are multiple things that are haunting the HR. You all are going to be future HR, social work students. That is something as HR we need to be completely resilient. And she said, we don't have time to bounce back, and a whole lot of responsibility falls on the HR. Like we will become like this, superwoman, superman, we'll be standing, enna help naanga irukom, oh problem. Aprom we'll be like koodi sende aludittirupom ulla, No, I'm being very upfront with you guys, literally. Everybody thinks that we can manage stuff, but we can, but we cannot also any times, And then we will start building this new story and all that. So resilience is something very crazy sometimes, because you are expected to do that. And one thing I really liked in Punitha's story was how they kind of recreated their values to suit the current requirements. So they didn't keep it as a very static value. It was very dynamic, and it was very highly suitable for the problems that they were going through, and it helped them to adapt to the pandemic, and to help them to bounce back quickly is what I think, Punitha. And I truly know as a HR again, to evangelize the values is not at all a joke. And no one is in a mood to listen. Kamesh, I think you can add some value to that. Business managers will say, Ennapa pudusa edo kondu daily. You know, I wanted to have a 30, 60, 90 probationary review. I got a mouthful from my my businessman. He said, Enna madam, or pudu format la kondu varinga unme puri matingde. You know, so they are not open. They are definitely not open because for them the customer is sitting on their heads. Literally. They are not interested. So, but that's a big challenge, you know, to recreate, to get that those dynamism in it. So, from a role perspective, it's extremely challenging. So, having said that, I want to shift the gear a little bit, and I want to ask Kamesh about what has been the leadership drive, because if there is no push from the top, we can say all kinds of things. You know, HR, we are very good in creating stories. Okay, Maniratnam takes special classes from us in writing stories. Okay, supra kada solluvom. But those kadais will work only when you have the right push from the management. The management should have the right value and they should wear it on their sleeve for the organizations to bounce back. Otherwise, everything falls flat on the face. Okay, I would like again the panelists to throw some light on what has been the management's value or the drive in creating this resilience as a powerful tool in your organization. Kamesh.
Wonderful. See, we had leadership topic in the previous panel, right? And then we were talking about COVID-related disruptions, and that's what. Let's shift gear, as you said. You know, the kind of resilience test comes not necessarily because of a pandemic. It can be market disruptions, regulatory disruptions, technological disruptions, geopolitical events that can lead to disruptions. A tsunami kind of a thing can lead to some kind of a disruption. So various disruptions are there. Now, she talked about leadership. You know, there's one wonderful thing which when Punitha talked about in the initiatives and all of that. I think she's been very modest in terms of saying we did all of this, and all of that. Probably there was some leadership drive behind, some leadership behind that. And I can never forget my tenure at L&T because I started my career there. So I was very fortunate to meet with Mr. Larsen, the guy who gave the name, okay? Henning Hock Larsen. So this was a market disruption. Many of you would have known about 1991, the crisis, and then, we went to IMF and we came back. So the de-licensing and all of that. And so the financial market was just about to boom, right? L&T formed a new company called L&T Finance. And that's when I was moving from L&T to L&T Finance. So we were all just the new set of employees there. And we invited Mr. Henning Hock Larsen to come and, inaugurate and, say hello to everyone. It was very funny. He was an 85-year-old gentleman, so imagine, that's resilience for you. 2 Danish engineers starting the company in 1938 in Bombay and left it to the people, professional engineers, and that's still now running, and those guys are no longer there, right? So he came across and he said, people, please introduce yourself. Mr. Devastali, he was just asking us to introduce ourselves. So he said, no, I will go and introduce myself. So he went to each one of us. So there was this gentleman next to me, and I was there, and I was handling corporate finance, and the guy next to me, he said, so what do you do? He asked him. He said, I'm a research analyst. That was his role. You can wire, Mr. Larsen's, he's an engineer. So Devastali, research and analysis mean the same, right? So everybody burst out laughing, said, don't think like an engineer. This is a finance company. He said, well, two bro and I started something where I don't know where it is going now. So look, now today L&T Finance is one of the largest units within, Larsen Tubro, right? That's one thing, that's resilience. They anticipated. Now, whether it is COVID or anything, it's anticipation of any potential disruption and being prepared for it and then just trying to take the first step. The other one which she also mentioned about, I just caught my eye in terms of, we Indian, we humans are generally resilient. I would extend that to saying that we Indians are generally resilient. I'll tell you the reason. There was an argument with somebody when they said, one of the clients asked us by saying, so you got to be very planned and you got to be very organized, and you guys are going away from planning. So I told him, see, the problem is, in a very lighter vein, we guys don't plan, right? Indians don't generally plan. We go to business schools, we come in. He said, what's the reason? I said, look, if you look at the society, this has been in existence for 5,000 years or whatever it is, right? Invaders may come, and there could be political disruptions, there could be geographical disruption, meteor might fall. It doesn't matter. The society will carry on, right? You guys, you just formed 300 years back. You got to plan. You're very paranoid. What is to be done and so on. So he said, look, I'm changing my philosophy, but how do you handle in such cases when people don't plan? It's the assurance. Leaders in such situations, you always, the associates, employees, peers, and anyone, there is only a certain degree of the designation or hierarchy that is attached to it. But then there is always a leadership could be even among your peers or even among your subordinates. It's assurance that fine, there is somebody who's there where I can pour out my problems and there's a potential solution to it. And there's no hard and fast rules towards that. I think leadership plays a very crucial role when any such disruptions happen. And if you also notice another crucial aspect of it, leaders, they should also spur on creativity, right? That's more important. And that happens during a disruption, whether it's COVID, whether in any other market disruption. Any leader, and she was talking about, nice creative things about, involving the family members to get, do something. That's creativity, right? And if you were to extend that into business teams, there are so many examples I can point out about, creativity, about, how people were wanting to, make out a movie as part of a proposal. I mean, they just wanted to make sure, they just, something which is a very new way of doing it. Birthdays now these days, well, last year was a very landmark year for me personally in our family. But people started looking at, very creative ways of, wishing each other. Now, where did that creativity come in? It's because of some disruption, right? So leaders, if in an organization, they will have to really spur on how to kindle that kind of creativity. Everybody has some creative mind. But it's just that, you can just provoke them, or mildly provoke them into how to be more creative and how to offer newer ways of looking at the same problem. And that's very important. I also want to talk one more thing about, she talked about the revenues were going up. Please note whether it's a tech disruption or a pandemic. Continuity of service is extremely important in any business. And many of you are going to be, HR or any other business managers. Please ensure the business organization, the continuity of business is very important. Why? In the digital world, any disruption of service means revenue down, and somebody else has a revenue up. So it's extremely important, how do I make sure that revenue is always up? Number two, it's also important to build it into the design. Now, the design of any particular process, HR process or timesheet, I can go on for hours together. The earliest thing was when I just came new into the IT industry from the financial services industry. They said, timesheet is more important. I said, I didn't understand, what do you mean by why is timesheet? And people are filling in by saying 1 hour lunch, 15 minutes chai. I'm not joking. I said, what's the value this brings in? So the head of Sundaram Infotech and I were talking, on some journey. We said, look, I'm not interested in their justification of 8 hours. I'm interested in what they are doing in 8 hours, right? So we changed the entire paradigm. We told them, we don't care. If you were to spend just 2 hours, enter 2 hours, right? And then we came to a very simple philosophy. As an IT services company, we deliver only 2 things world over. Can anyone say? It's the code or the document. A document of what, why, and how to do something, and the code which actually does it. These are the only two things any IT service, you may call it by so many other means, right? These are only two things you deliver. So I said, okay, any activity in the company should be linked to either the document or to the code, right? So we said, okay, start doing it. There was a huge resistance, but I remember very well that the leader, he said, I'm not interested, whatever you do, just let me know what you did during the day towards the code or towards the document. People said, I had a meeting. For what? We had to discuss the design. For what? So we had to go into those, so then it led to either, okay, so then your design related efforts started increasing. So they said, okay, then we should not meet. So 20 people meeting for 1 hour, 20 man hours gone, right? So again, why am I saying this? The concept of timesheet, people started looking at it differently. Automatically, productivity comes, on top. Now you'll start realizing. This led to an innovation by, because there was a compulsion, because customers were asking you to bring down price and so on. So that started, spurring on a new kind of a value system into this. So as I said, when you talk about leadership, one is communication, assurance, and making sure you spur on creativity. I'll just leave that.
So the story that I'm going to share should go be an extension of what Mr. Kamesh said. I think you're stealing the the suspense. Even I was just thinking about moving beyond COVID. Like Rajini said, let's get past COVID. COVID is gone. It's not gone, but it's at least let's get it past. And I have an interesting story to share about the vision of the leadership and the leadership drive, that what change it could potentially bring. So he gave this example of L&T Finance, and I want to give you a story of how L&T construction started digital. So first of all, construction and digital don't get along very well at all. But then the current MD and CEO, Mr. S.N. Subramaniam, said, see, there is this whole world is going digital. So why construction should not take up digital? So that was his vision, and that's when he formed the team. And it was in 2016 that I came into the team. We just came from like different places across L&T, and some 4 of us were there. We had a boss who was running this whole thing. What is interesting is that in the first year of we started digital is that we had about 40 solutions done. 40 solutions done running in 400 sites, because one thing that he was driving, and one communication, or I would say, I would more call it as a dictum that was given to us, is the solution that you deploy should not work in one site. It should work, I don't care, 400 sites, it should run in 400 sites. I add 400 and first one, it should just run. So there's nothing that you should just think about, and don't tell me that, oh, this app will not work here, this app will not work there, nothing. So that was the message that we had. So we had 40 solutions running, cutting across multiple different aspects of construction. And how did it all happen? While for a moment, let's keep the speed at which we had to develop. That was there. What was important is the adoption of these technologies in the site. So I always fondly remember SNS speaking in many forums. So that was one of the important aspects. So every forum from 2016, anytime he picks up the mic and speaks to employees, he'll talk about digital. And that was the communication. So first time we went, people were wondering, what are you coming? What is digital? How can I use app? I'm just pouring concrete. What do you want me to do differently? So, but then the communication from the leadership, and suddenly SNS, every meeting he'll talk about digital. So it makes the employees curious to know, okay, what is this digital? Let me also figure out. That is one of the important aspect of being a leadership, and that is a transformation. Why we were able to do the transformation? That is because of the constant communication from the leadership team. And another aspect is he just didn't leave it to say that, okay, you go and do whatever you want, just keep me posted. Not that way. He did two things. One, he will have review with us every week to know what's happening. Not just with us. He will also go to site and figure out whether whatever we said has been done or not. And you know how he does that? He doesn't, just ask the one fellow call and, ask saying what you have done. He will ask questions that he can answer only when he has been using the app. Right? So I'm just giving you an example. So otherwise, if that fellow says, sir, I don't know what you're saying and all, that's it. He will go for a digital training session. So that is, so we're talking, so the challenge that we had was, all these sites were remote sites. Not all sites will be in metropolitan cities. So these will be in remote sites, but we had to go to all these sites and ensure that it's done. And the adoption is just not hearsay, it's actually being done. And then the second transformation, the first year was just about doing it. The second year was actually using, the management started actually taking decisions based on the data. So that was the second step of the transformation. It's just not enough that I've developed 40 different applications and it's running. How are you using it? So the second step became using it. And how was it done? SNS will not encourage any more presentations to be shown at the time. Anything you want, he'll say, open the dashboard, show me, let me see the data myself. So when the leader leads by example, then it's just that everyone should just follow. There's no other reason why it should happen. And we always call Mr. S. N. Subramaniam as SNS. We have this 3-letter acronym pretty popular in L&T, AMN, SNS. So we always say SNS is about actually speed and scale. So he said, you want to fail, you fail fast. But don't make people think that you have failed. Before even they think, you just have to have gotten, the things should have gotten into their system. So which is why the speed and scale, the speed at which you adopt, so suddenly people had 40 different apps on their phone. And also more than that, all sites, all of them had apps on their phone. So that was the transformation that we had brought in. And this is very, very interesting, I must say, is because construction, as a construction company, as a construction industry itself, you will see that many management consultants have said that the worst adopted industry across the world, not just in India, but across the world who has adopted digital is construction. And like all of you have heard and seen also, disruption is coming in digital. So how it's going to hit the construction industry also pretty soon. So we had this leadership have the foresight of, being able to better prepared of when this disruption comes. Who cares? I'm already equipped. So 5 years, it's been 5 years, exactly 5 years since we started. We started in Feb 2016. And today we can say proudly that we are better prepared. We're not there yet, but we know what to do. Yeah, so that is what I wanted to share.
If you don't mind, I'll just...
Please.
She talked about, the construction equipment. See, one of the things which I want to talk about, in L&T once again, I'm just fondly recalling, it's the clarity of thought among leadership, right? Execution, speed, agility, it's a clarity that's very important. I'll narrate an incident. One of the board of directors, he's no longer there. He's called MP Wag. We used to call him MPW. So we had a strategic plan 2000, right, in L&T in 1992, I think, right. We were all part of it, and telecom was just coming in, and then there was no Airtel, nothing. We just still had BSNL, right? And then we had Telstra talking to us, we had Ericsson talking to us, AT&T talking to us, and everybody was talking to us. So our telecom division started coming and putting up a strategic plan, and in Harvard Graphics, how many of you know that? There was no PowerPoint. It was called Harvard Graphics, okay? So these guys, it was a transparent sheet, and it was projected, and these guys had put up and saying it's 70% growth, and we will improve that to some insane figures because India's telecom penetration is very less, and so on. So they said telecom services, and we will collaborate with any of these guys. L&T is a very good name. We'll get into telecom services. Very serious thought. We had called this board member, Mr. Wag, to be there in that room. He was quietly listening. And my boss, my B&D, Wayne Dravid, so he was like, he was trying to argue, saying that, hey, look, I mean, I'm not really convinced. You know, you're trying to get into a new area, and why is this? You know, I mean, you tell me convincing reason and so on. So the argument is going on, and the managers were also trying to tell him, B&D, you need to change. I mean, you got to adapt. And they were giving bhashan to this guy. So then V&D said, okay, Mr. Wag, would you like to come here? He said, you don't mind? I said, no. Okay, he just came on and he said, he asked a very simple question to them. He said, Dekho bhai, tell me what do you mean by telecom services? Explain to me. So they started saying, sir, it is basic telephony and, you know, what do you mean? I know about bus bars, manufacturing, construction. I make switch gear. I do something in my factory. Tell me, what do you make? That's a clarity, right? He prodded them on for 10 minutes. He said, you don't even know what you mean by services, right? Let's not do that. L&T is good at making something, manufacturing something, doing something. If you're convinced and you have a very good definition, come back to me. Then I will appoint McKinsey or somebody and we can enter into telecom. Till date, I don't think L&T has got into telecom services. They are only involved in construction towers. They put up towers and they do things which are, much more, physical. Just wanted to share that.
One more point I wanted to just say that another, just an extension of what I just told, because I said we finished 5 years, right? So last, it was in 2019, the 3 years of digital, that the same leader decided that it's, it is not enough if we have proved that these is the apps that we have, the products that we have been using works at scale. So and he found that the need is there in the market. And I don't know how many of you caught it. I'm actually coming from the company called L&T Next, NXT. So when did this company get formed? It just got formed only in 2019. And what is it is just a digital arm. What we have decided, what he had a vision saying, this is something that the world is going to need. It's just not L&T construction which needs. He has been talking this to many customers across the globe, and he found the need that there is a lot of requirement that's going to happen, that is required from other customers, other industries as well. So he immediately formed this business. Now today we are part of this business. I'm part of the business, trying to take these products to the markets that we have proven and implemented in construction. So that is the vision that we are talking about. So what is important, if you see, is that you are able to connect to as an employee, I'm able to connect with what vision that the leadership has. And why am I able to connect? Because that is what the leader is trying to communicate. So it's not just like she said, it's not just the vision statement of the company that the company runs. You should be able to understand and being able to connect to the leadership's vision, and automatically everyone will follow and achieve the goal. So that's the point I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. So as long as I think I'm still wondering, you in CTS or L&T?
I think the previous panelist, what's his name?
Sriram.
Nakiran. He said, the first job defines you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that makes a lot of difference.
No, I was actually confused. And that is the kind of impact. She talked very beautifully about leading by an example, and look at the kind of bug that has bitten him, It's like so strong, right? So like he's jumping at it. He says, this is what I learned. And look at the kind of, it's etched in his brain, actually speaking. It's etched. It'll never go away. Because that is the leadership by example. That is a clarity of thought. Those were the leaders who shaped him, and he is what he is, I think, is because of those kind of leaders. And thank you, Kritika, for narrating a very beautiful story of leadership values, communication, and again she spoke about, the leader taking a lead and not sitting in his cabin and trying to understand how things are moving. So the typical Hyundai philosophy, the Korean philosophy is being at the workplace. You know, they make decisions at the workplace. They go to the Gemba to do all their clutch transformations or their braking systems. They go there and make decisions. While Koreans can be very difficult bosses, they go to the Gemba to take decisions, and that's what I think Mr. SNS had done. And congratulations to L&T for moving up the, you know, what do I say, in the right direction. And we'll go on to listen to what has been, you know, CSS Corp's leadership value and what has guided them. Okay, yeah, over to you.
Thank you. So I think after both of you folks, I'm just going to quote some examples of the leadership traits that I have seen personally that has kind of impacted the organization. And first job is always special, so I'll also quote some examples from Infosys that I've seen, right? So I think when my CEO took over CSS Corp, the first thing that he said is, I do not want to offer jobs to my employees. I want to offer them careers. I don't want them to come here because they get paid on the last working day of the month, but I want them to come here because I want them to feel that they have something to learn from this place. So learning became a core pillar of our strategy, of our business, of the way we treat people, of the way we want to develop people. So learning and development kind of became the core in everything that we do. So the first thing that he asks in any new initiative, any new business that comes in, what do we learn from this? How can my employees learn from this? If new technology, great. Sorry, you bring in new technology, but how is it going to help the engineer there? It will help the business. A new technology, a new line of business, it will help the business, it will help the organization, brings in revenue. But how is it going to help my employee? What will he learn from this? How do we help his learning journey in this entire change or disruption that we are talking about? So that is the first question that he asked. So today what happens is, even before we want to bring in something new to the organization, we start thinking from an employee point of view, saying what can an employee learn from this whole thing? Right, so that was a big change for the organization as such, because we were never thinking in those lines. So when that came into picture, the way we started looking at a new process, looking at a new policy, looking at new line of business became very different. Because then we always had to answer to the CEO saying, okay, there has to be some learning. So we were now backtracking the whole thing, saying, okay, we'll start from the employee and then we need to connect. Now, lot of things were, okay, how do we connect? So, but there was that effort that started coming in. The second part was, it's not just about having a vision and saying, okay, this is what I want to offer, but demonstrating it in reality, right? So then you started building in programs which said, okay, this is how I will make sure, this is the framework that I've built in to make sure that my employees are having a learning experience throughout their career, whether it is 2 years, 3 years. And unlike a manufacturing company, in an IT services or tech support company, 2 years is big time. Whoa, 2 years, super. An employee who's there for more than 3 years, technically in my line of business, in tech support business, after 3 years, even if an employee does not stay back, I'm okay. For me, after 3 years, an engineer's retention is not of highest priority. But the first 3 years is very critical. And in that first 3 years, predominantly, where do we go? We go for hiring from colleges. So that is also the time when you are in that phase of learning, you're in that phase where you grasp more, right? The inflow, I mean, you kind of, actually that is the phase when you can take in more as well, because after you get to a stage, you want to manage things. You want to manage people, you want to manage the process, you don't want to learn. So the learning curve kind of comes down. So then the whole aspect was, how do you build that learning as a culture of the organization, bring in that. So the whole way in which this ideology was demonstrated, was built in as a system, as a culture of the organization. I think that was, to me, a biggest trait that I saw in my CEO in CSS Corp. But the other thing that, I mean, this is from my first organization, Infosys, when I was working. So there was a very hard time that we were going through. I mean, this is personally for me as an individual, because I'm into grievance handling and disciplinary cases, right? So I was handling a disciplinary issue where I had to fire a very senior person in the Mahindra City office. And he was somebody who was managing the facilities and security and things like that. And he had a lot of connects, whether it is the police, to the goons, to the localites, there was a lot of connects. So when this investigation was going on and we had to finally fire this person, the first thing that they told me was, the next 3 months don't travel to Mahindra City office. It's not a very safe thing, and I used to take the train to Paranur, and from Paranur I used to take the office bus to go. So they said, don't travel to, you know, your, at least for 3 months. So I said, I did my job, he did something wrong, and I had to fire him because it's the company's process and policy, and now you're asking me not to go to my workplace for 3 months? How fair is that? And I was fighting with my manager on this, and I said, this is not fair, you should not be doing this to me. He said, please understand, this is not for you doing your job, this is to make sure that the repercussions of your job is not impacting you as an individual. Somehow I was not very convinced. I kept fighting, and I said, this is not right at all. That night I get a call from my head of HR, right? And the only thing that he says is, you want to go to Mahindra City? Make sure your boss drives you there. That's all. 3 months, every time that I wanted to go into Mahindra City, my boss drove me like a chauffeur. I used to call him, boss, nalik Mahindra City pore. Okay ma, come to Shoals, I'll take you and go. So I used to go to Sholingalur office, my boss used to drive me to Mahindra City. And sometimes, I just wanted to test my boss. Is he really wanting to do that? So I said, tomorrow I want to go. He said, okay, come. What work do you have? Chumma, I wanted to go to Mahindra City office. But that is the commitment that they had to the promise that they made to me. And to me, that was a big thing because, and I was not in a senior position. This was in my 4 years or 5 years into CSS. So I was still a senior associate, senior executive kind of role. And if a commitment or a promise made to a senior executive was followed to the T, that gave me the confidence that I can trust my leadership. So building that trust, creating that trust actually makes a lot of difference. And I think whenever it comes to disruptions or situations like this, that makes the difference because I trust my leadership. I know that they will do things for me, right? And I know that if my leadership says that the business is going to be okay, it is going to be okay. In this pandemic, in CSS Corp, right, we have not stopped any of the promotions of our engineers. Variable payouts went out 100% to all our engineers. We promoted so many of our engineers. We have given out the annual increments. While companies were not doing that, we said no. That is a commitment that I made to my employees that year on year there's an annual increment. Every 6 months there is a variable payout. And if I made that commitment, I will stand by it. So when you stand by your commitment, when you demonstrate your ideology in action, and when you build that trust, I think that is when you actually build that whole resilience framework because your employees, your organization follow you because they know that when you say something, you mean it. So to me, I think that's the organizational leadership.
Commitment. Yes, sir.
Can I add one more
Sure.
non-organizational leadership? This is a very interesting story. This is about a former Sultan of Oman. Okay, it's a very interesting. The point I want to reinforce is when you want to design something or you want to create some process for organizational resilience, make sure it's permanent, it's resilient, right? And it is foolproof. What can go wrong? So this is a classic example. Sultan of Oman is, he's no longer there. Sultan Qaboos, so this is the story about, he used to have lot of these guys, cleaners, the janitors, and all of them in his palace going around. He had some controlling stake or some kind of a investment in Rolex company. So Rolex watches used to be strewn around. Pilferage is a problem. Theft is a problem. Most of the janitors and other guys are Indian guys, so they are very poorly paid, but they have the labor card from the palace and so on. Some hardly burns 5,000, 6,000 rupees per month or something, but they're fed and they're taken care of. So there was this incident of this innocent guy from Kerala. So he probably was tempted and then he lifted one Rolex watch. And what happened is these guys used to have this bedroll, while going back home. So it was somewhere there and it was caught at the airport. I knew this because one of the supervisors there was a customer of mine. So he just narrated this incident. So they caught this and they said, they called him and I said, what is that? They said, not a watch, how did he get it? No, my brother bought it for me. He didn't know the value of that because it's much more than 3 or 4 months salary for him. He couldn't get it then. So he said, they immediately called up the palace and asked, what do we do with this guy? He's stolen something from Sultan's personal room. So, they didn't know what to do and they said, let him go and come back. So, no, let's not do anything right now. So the guy came back. So the immediate assistants for the Sultan, apparently they went to him and said, look, we have caught this guy and we have detained him. So Sultan said, why have you done that? Because this guy has stolen a watch and all. Okay, so we want a solution. What do we do with him? He said, just release him. Who's the supervisor? Arrest him. Right? So he completely solved the problem because, no supervisor will be negligent. Right? And all the guys who are going to be around with him will be 100% efficient and there's no problem of that. So the palace guys were completely, surprised by this. From then on, people dread to become supervisors there, So what do they teach you? Again, he solved the problem permanently, right? There's no way of, you can punish one fellow, cannot punish another fellow. So this is something which just came to my mind.
Thank you. I think, we had a very beautiful dose of, the leadership values. For me, from my company perspective, optimism was the value that we were trying to spread. Because during these pandemic times, the first thing that will hit everybody is they become very sad and they get very scared of the future. So the first message that my CEO gave to all people was, and of course we service the US, our basic market is US. So he said, in the US, steel industry is, the steel construction is like it's like this everyday, it's like the basic necessity for that country. So when you have that as a basic necessity, you will never give up that business. So this particular thing was, put into everybody's mind, and they said that this is going to be like an ongoing, and I think, like what Punitha said, 2020 was a very booming year for us because the entire year we put together, we did about 50,000 steel tons of construction in Esskay design. So, I as students, as I'm winding down this discussion, I just want to tell you one small thing, with all these stories, beautiful articulation from our leaders who are sitting on the panel today, is one thing is, you must remember that all that you learn in OB, organizational behavior book, makes a lot of business sense. If you're going to ignore that and look at the amount of business sense, everything boils down to anna, paisa, rupees, dollars, euro, and probably whatever the currency is. Everything boils down to that. Resilience is not like one moral science story where nalla irpa, not like that. Everything boils down to the business sense. If this concept is not making business sense, it's a waste of two hours of time that we have spent together. And why am I talking about it is, when you join organizations, you should have this broad perspective about adapting and adopting, business values as your core. Otherwise, as HR, you lose out in the game. That's my, 2 cents. And as we are winding down, now that earlier I was said there's no time limit, ma'am, we can go on and on and on. I said, wow, so nobody's going to show this tea. I said, that's fantastic, yeah. MSSW leading the way. Now again they said, ma'am, please go to Q&A. Time illa, ma'am, saapadu time aiche. Even we are hungry, but so everything should make business sense at the end of the day, right? So that's what I would like to say.
Wonderfully said. Business values are very important. See, don't look at HR or any of these as distinct from the business values. She also touched upon it, and she also touched upon it. going digital or going, making changes, being resilient doesn't mean compromising on some core values. It doesn't mean we can give discounts. Again, I'll give you a very interesting example. A customer who was refused to pay finally came to settle. Paid the money, but there was an overdue charge, penalty charge. Came to negotiation with the leader. He said, look, you guys are, they in Arabic, he said, "Wala haram hai kya? You guys are charging me 24% interest and all that. This is nonsense." So that guy said, no, this is as per the contract. You have to sign it. That's the company values. You have to do it. So that guy said, no, I'm not willing to. This is complete nonsense. I'm not going to do it. So the leader, how will you normally, react? So he will say, fine, come on, let's do that, some discount and all that. This leader, I can never forget that. He said, excellent. So you are saying you will not respect the contract, correct? He said, yes. I will also not respect the contract. You are saying you will not pay 24%. Pay me 30%. That guy was shocked. He said, what do you mean by this? Yeah, you also not, you are also not respecting the contract. I will also not respect one. I will ask whatever I want. You will ask whatever you want. So after 5 minutes, the guy thought about it. He said, okay, let me pay this and then. See, again, the leader came on saying that respect what the values are, what the agreement is.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, having said all that, any Q&A from you, and we'll give you an A. Yeah. Are you very hungry? So don't want food. We can directly go into the next section. Ella answer pannitoma. Great.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for letting us know how to be resilient in both professional and personal perspectives, and also highlighting the importance of communication.
If you ask me, can I actually 3D print an airport? I don't think so. I don't think we are there yet. I don't know whether we will ever be there yet, right? Because it's all, every structure that we have built, a bridge, whether it's a bridge or whether it's airport or whether it's any of the marvelous structures, including Statue of Unity, can ever be built with 3D printing. There's a lot of design work that goes into it. You can't, it is like, you can't put apple, you are comparing apple and oranges. There's no comparison at all. But having said that, many initiatives like 3D printing is being used to ensure that it is put in the place where it brings me value. If it is put in a place where, like you said, I'm going to construct identical houses, hundreds of identical houses, keep on building floors after floors. Maybe there it will be useful, but it will not be useful when I'm actually building a hallmark structure. So So the technology has to be seen with the business value and definitely be adopted. Having said that, definitely construction industry is adopting 3D printing, and it's all these, the example that you quoted and many more examples that's going to come in the future is, you know, it's itself is an example of that. Sorry. Yeah.
Organizations in India have various initiatives and schemes for the welfare of the contract laborers, and also social legislative security, and also specific legislations for the welfare of the contract laborers, construction workers. But even though we are facing any contract labor crisis as a part of a COVID, so do you think like we are equipped with proper labor laws, or we need to cope up more?
So I'm obviously not the right person to answer the question, but I can tell you one thing. Thanks to COVID, there is the government is bringing a lot of initiative, because I'm sure you heard in the news during that 1 month that you were all put inside the house, that the difficulty about this contract labor migrant workers. But it's just that it's always been there. It is not that it came because of COVID. We have always seen the dearth of right skill because of these migrant workers. It's always been there. Having said that, COVID has helped government to realize this, and I can only tell you that government is bringing a lot of initiatives. I'm not saying they're changing the labor laws, but I can tell you that though I can't quote what's happening, but I can tell you that there are a lot of initiatives that are coming up to manage these contract workers that will help them to probably pick up the jobs much easier than what it is today.
I can add some value to your question, not just for the construction contract workers. There's a lot of modifications that have been brought in to the wage itself, wage structure. Even at a white collar level, the wage structures are going to be changing right now. The PF components are taking a small change. The ESI is taking a small change. So, the governments are quickly adapting. Of course, it's very tough to do those changes as well, to, to support the government to some extent. But, you have a lot of middlemen who work on all these things, right? So, but a lot of change. I'm also managing and monitoring those things. So it is available. There are changes which will support the workers, definitely.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Janaki to felicitate Dr. Rajini Sriraman. Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Francis, HOD, to felicitate Ms. Punitha Anthony. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to call Arinesh, President, Pegasus Student Forum, to facilitate Ms. Kritika Venkatsh. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call Tariq to felicitate Ms. Kritika Venkatsh. Oh, sorry. Sorry, sir. Kamesh K.
பசி மயக்கம் சொல்லுவாங்க. Or I think they want some internship or job, I think, yeah. L&T. என்னுடைய பட்சி அதான் சொல்லுவேன்.
I would like to call upon Irene, Treasurer, Pegasus Student Forum, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Honorable guest, head of the institution, respected faculties, and all participants, it is my privilege to stand before you on behalf of Pegasus Student Forum and PG Department of Social Work, Shift 2, to propose the vote of thanks to all who have strived for making this day an astounding success. I would like to express my sincere thanks to the moderators of the second panel, Dr. Rajini Sriraman, the panelists, Ms. Kritika Venkatsh, Ms. Punitha Anthony, and Mr. K. Krishnamurti for giving an excellent coverage on organization resilience. So a big thank you to all the guests and speakers for joining us today and sharing a great word of wisdom and enriched experience from the field. We've been fortunate to be assisted by our principal, Dr. S. Raja Sambal sir, who has been a constant support and encouragement to do the best in every other time. Thank you, sir. I'm very grateful to Dr. C. Francis, the head of the department, for giving an opportunity to organize this event and constantly supporting us in all that we do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling weeks ago. It required planning and a bird eye for details. We've been fortunate enough to be backed up and motivated by our Pegasus faculty coordinators, Professor Priya Doris and Professor Damon Queen. I'm also thankful for our other faculty members from Shift 2 family and the Pegasus Student Forum members and all the students who worked towards this webinar. Finally, I can't be without thanking the student crew of 5 from the core committee, Ms. Meloshini, Ms. Sri Lakshmi, Ms. Rohini, Ms. Vaishnavi N, and Mr. Naveen, who played a crucial role with their active involvement and their readiness to take up on any task by pushing themselves beyond their comfort zones. So last but not the least, this time of gratitude, I would like to extend my appreciation and thanks to C2 Audio Visuals and the entire technical team for their tremendous technical support throughout the day. So our heartfelt thanks goes to all our delegates who have joined us online and offline. You are the reason for this event. I hope this opportunity would have enriched your knowledge by learning from the best practitioners in the HR field. You have given us your time, the most precious gift of all. So once again, we thank you all for joining us today. Hope to see you all tomorrow in the day 2 of Future Proofing Fundamentals. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. With this, we come to the end of the session.
And stay tuned with us for tomorrow's session on digital HR. Tomorrow's session will be conducted through Zoom and YouTube. The links will be mailed to you by tonight. So join us tomorrow where we have speakers Ms. Uma Rao, Ms. Shobana Kailash, handling the third panel on digital HR and a vote of thanks and valedictory event headed by our chief guest Mr. Raghupati. So see you all tomorrow. Looking forward for your active participation. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
about this program. Very nice. Because only the audience actually, according to the